Bamboo fire, what kind of fire? Bamboo fire, bamboo, what kind of fire? Bamboo, hot, hot fire, bamboo, too much fire. Bamboo fire, what kind of fire? Bamboo fire makes so, makes so. Bamboo fire, what kind of fire? Bamboo fire makes so, makes so. Bamboo fire, what kind of fire? Bamboo fire makes so, makes so. Bamboo fire, what kind of fire? Bamboo fire makes so, makes so. Bamboo fire, hot, hot fire. Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so. Bamboo fire, hot, hot fire. Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so. Bamboo fire, bamboo fire makes so, he makes so. Bamboo fire, bamboo fire makes so, he makes so. 6 o'clock and the thing not ready. Bamboo fire makes so, makes so. 6 o'clock and the thing not ready. Bamboo fire makes so, makes so. 6 o'clock and the thing not ready. Bamboo fire makes so, makes so. 6 o'clock and the thing not ready. Bamboo fire makes so, makes so. I come home and the pot not done yet. Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so. I come home and the pot not done yet. Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so. I come home and the rice not fire. Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so. I come home and the rice not fire. Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so. Bamboo fire, hot, hot fire. Bamboo fire makes so, makes so. Bamboo fire, hot, hot fire. Bamboo fire makes so, makes so. Bamboo fire, hot, hot fire. Bamboo fire makes so, makes so. Bamboo fire, hot, hot fire. Bamboo fire makes so, makes so. Give me the water, the out of the fire. Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so. Give me the water, the out of the fire. Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so. Give me the out of the fire. Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so. Give me the water, the out of the fire. Bamboo fire makes so, he makes so. Bamboo, bamboo fire 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 makes so, makes so, makes so. Makes so, makes so, makes so. Makes so, makes so, makes so. Makes so.
Drinking
Your microphone, your microphone.
Annette, good night.
A pleasant evening to you, Sister VK. How are you this evening?
Well, I'm doing good by God's grace. I want to say good night
Yes.
to our listening and viewing audience. And
Mm-hmm.
also to say to you and your family, Annette, happy Easter. I hope you have that big kite set aside there to go fly on Monday. And
Okay.
as a reminder to encourage others, let us fly our kites away from electrical wires as we discuss tonight the success of women in a man's world.
Yes.
Interesting topic tonight.
Interesting topic indeed.
I
but
know.
yeah,
Go
but
ahead.
even before we get into
Yeah,
the substantive topic for tonight's discussion, allow me this opportunity to reciprocate similar sentiments to you and to your entire family.
thank you.
Today, many the Christians around the world celebrated Good Friday, and you know that this is a solemn day. It's the crucifixion of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and it has its own meaning behind it. Redemption for
Yeah.
our transgression. And 3 days after, He will, or He has
Do it
risen,
again.
and we will be
Right. Do it
celebrating
again.
Easter Sunday, Easter Sunday.
Resurrection.
So yes, I just want to take this opportunity to extend best Easter wishes to each and every Guyanese. Wherever you fly a kite, please ensure you do it in open and safe spaces. And also, let us, as we fly our kites, let us remember the reason for the season. It is about His resurrection. So I just
Yes,
want to leave that with our viewers and listeners, Vanessa.
yes, that's so nice, Annette. And growing up as a little girl, how was your? Just give me a little insight of your Easter. What
God,
was it like?
Girl, to be honest, I was what should I say? I was one time an Anglican, altar girl. So every Good Friday, you gotta be in church. And sometimes you go to church from 9 in the morning to 10, and then you have to return in the afternoons for Station of the Cross, which was a length, which was a longer service in the afternoon. So I have since transformed from Anglicanism to now into the Pentecostal church. So we do things a little differently there
Different.
at
Yeah.
the assemblies. But growing up, Easter for me was quite a sacred one because I come from a family that is highly religious, and I must admit that I hadn't much fun in flying kites. I
Oh,
can recall, yeah, I recall my brother just before me, he was, into the whole kite making thing. If it's the old punch. And I
yeah.
remember one day he made a very big kite. So living in the border area there, we used to go on the malls, the Merrimon malls, and just put we thing up in the air. And when we feel tired, we just went back home. And sometimes what mom used to do, we used to spend the entire day at families. I remember going to a great aunt in Crane there, on the
Let me
west
just
coast
let me
of
just
Jamaica.
welcome MP McDonald. Hi, MP
Yeah.
McDonald. Good night.
All right, MP, MPCM, a pleasant evening and welcome. So, as I was sharing, Vanessa, so sometimes, mom used to take us out of the city, to spend time with other relatives and family. So that's basically how I have spent, my Easter holidays growing up. So now that you're much more matured, you do things quite differently. Yes, you may have the younger ones who might have an interest in having a kite, here and there, but that's how I
And
usually spend the thing.
I want to say for me, it was exciting. I grew up in the Catholic Church, and I know about
Hmm.
Stations of the Cross. I know about Ash
Hmm.
Wednesday. We were excited to go get our ash on
Yes,
Ash Wednesday.
yes.
We were on Shrove Tuesday. We wanted our pancakes. We were excited for that. But Easter Monday was it for us because we had gum cherries. We had our cousins, making kite frames. We sat around and watched. And
Hmm.
one particular Easter, I remember when my cousin Curtie, he made my kite. And it was literally a coffin cover, as you call it. It was
Hmm.
literally looking like a coffin cover. My kite was the laugh of the family. You hear me? Everybody was laughing me and my kite. But
Hmm.
you know what? Like me, that kite stood the end of time. That kite was the only kite that was left up in the air lit when all my sisters and brothers and other cousins, their kites won't go because we went out to the Pleasant Seawall. And so we
Okay.
used to hook our kites on our backs, and we gone who got the
Hmm.
biggest baller and this type of thing. So we had really fun days. It's not like that anymore,
Yes, indeed.
but everybody know a lot of persons go for the bird kites, but we still have persons around, doing the box boards and these sort of things. But it was
Hmm.
really fun for me back then. MP
Hmm.
McDonald, thank you for joining us. I know you'll take the floor from here. But before we get into our actual discussion, just give us a little brief, because as Mark said, Annette and I, and we know you too. I don't know how we're gonna make out tonight, but it's three pastors in the place, right? But just give us a little insight on your Easter and what it used to be like.
Well,
Hi,
good
Jackie.
night to all of us. I noticed my colleague Jenny joining us,
Yes.
Sister Nicholson. Um, well, let me say to you, a good night to you, to our viewers, and I trust that all of us would have had a very good day today, Good Friday. But let me say from the onset that as an Adventist, as a matter of fact, I should not have even been on the show here tonight. But
Mhm. I'm surprised
um,
that you won.
uh, Easter Adventist, we recognize the fact that Jesus Christ died, he was crucified, and that, but we don't observe this every religious year like the other denominations would do. But let me say to you, during my childhood days, I grew up in on the quarantine.
And so kite flying started for us in February. By the time you get home from school, I know about joke joke. That's the one where what that we call the cardio punch. That you just
Yes,
fold the edges of the paper in, and then you put on that string at the top there, and you got a tail, and you
yes,
have your thread or whatever, or you then they used to say you strip the polythene so it gets
unseen.
smaller, and because it would weigh the kite down. And we flying cardio punch. From cardio punch, we making the joke joke, which is the page. You fold the page across like this diagonally, and you tear, and then you put the pointers, two pointers across like this,
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
and
yes.
you have your tail and your loop, and you fly. And
You have
then
to make it.
we graduated from there to making pointer kites. And let me tell you, I could paste kites, so don't feel I can't paste kites. I could do the frills too. I could make the stars. And so we move. We as the time draw nearer to Christmas to Easter, you do the pointer kite because
Yes,
you're not bringing out your what we call board kite then,
good.
which is what you
The
call
box
box
wood,
board kite.
box
You're not
wood,
bringing
yes.
out your board kite yet because, of course, when your board kite come out, it got to be a big kite and it got to be a
Yes,
singing engine. So we flying from February straight into Easter, straight whether Easter is going to be March month end or it's going to be in April. So we flying all the time. And then you look forward to Easter Monday. As a matter of fact, Easter Sunday, your kite going up since 12 o'clock in the night. By sometimes by 1:30, 2:30, and 3:30 in the mornings, you only hearing kites singing in the air and everybody all excited. So when you start off there early, by 7:30, you pull your kite down, you ball up your baller, and then we used to have the fat baller that we used to call fat baller and the long baller. So there's a technique in balling up your twine. So you sometimes get the baller long, and then sometimes you get the short, stumpy ones. And then we look forward to going to number 63 beach. That was the hype of Easter Monday on the quarantine. People from all walks of life traveled to 63 beach to be part of the Easter Monday activities. And that was fun. But now we have lost the true meaning of Easter. So the children now, they are not really fascinated about Easter. They don't know about these kites. They know about the bird kites that they see now. And so many of them are not fascinated with the bird kite that we call them. But Easter was fun for you. As long as you're a country girl, country boy, Easter was fun for you. When we moved to Georgetown, we started flying kites on the seawall and you go to the national park. But it wasn't much fun like you had in the country. And guess what we used to do? We used to put on a razor blade on the tail of your kite. And you're going next to other people's kite to cut other people. Man, that was fun. So when your kite bursts or your kite get cut, you're running full speed. You're watching the string in the air and you're running full speed to see where the kite can touch. Man, that was fun. But our children now, they don't have that kind of fun.
Exactly.
We used to have competitions to make the stars and to see whose frill would be the best. So the frill is the stringy ones that you put to the end. And then you had the flaps that you put at the top of the kite. You have that half quarter moon flap, or what we would call it the ear. So you had the flaps, and then you had your frills at the bottom. But that was fun for us. Easter was fun for us.
You have to have the tongue. And have you ever eaten the gamma cherry? You ever taste
Man, you eat that and get bind.
Those were the days.
Those were the days. I noticed my sister's being knocked off every now and again. This is what's happening on the quarantine there. She's way out in Clifton. But ladies, we are going to be talking tonight on the successes of ladies in quote unquote in a man's world. And I'm sure we have our success stories to tell, how we would have reached where we are and how we got there. I'm not sure which one of you will start off first, but I'm leaving it open. And I know, of course, Tonight is I don't want to say Clash of the Champions, I don't want to say Clash of the Titans, I don't want to say Clash of the Queens, but I'm saying tonight is the night where queens are going to be lifting queens, queens are going to be fixing the crowns of queens properly, and queens are going to be motivating queens. Those are the folks that we have on the show tonight.
Well, if I'm to take the first jump, Coretta, indeed, the topic up for tonight's discussion, for me, I see it as a healthy topic. Indeed, women have become very successful in this thing that is being determined as a man's world. But because for me, time has evolved and women have started to take their rightful place in society, whether at the political level, at the social level, at the religious level, you know, even in the secular world, you've seen women, going out there and doing what they have to do. But for me, I want to start from a basis of the biblical perspective. The Bible would have identified the characters like Deborah. Deborah, who was actually a judge. She used to really fight against the wrongs that were being done in those times. Also, though it was perceived to be a man's responsibility, Deborah really showcased that, well, look, she too can take authority, she too can do just like what a man can do. And also, you had Lydia, is another distinguished character in the Bible. Lydia was more like a merchandiser, even though, in businesses, men dominate this sector very heavily. But in the Bible, we would have seen Lydia, as a merchandiser there, selling clothing amongst every other thing to make a living. So if we to look from what the Bible really taught us, or the examples that the Bible would have given to us, I believe it is man, like you and I, who determine the roles of a woman, who determine what women should do, what they should be involved in. I don't think this is how God ordained it, though he said wives must be submissive. Wives are men, or husbands help meet and all manner of thing. But he did not tie us down not to be, in a man's dominated world. So I think I would want to pause here for the time being because I have so much to expand upon. But I believe the Bible would have given us classic examples as to how women can fit in to the realm of things.
Right, good, Annette. I like that perspective that you brought to us tonight, and
Mhm,
I admired Esther too, as a
mhm,
woman in the Bible, and if you remember back in history, and a lot of times history don't highlight much of women and their achievements and so on, because if you know of Queen Nzinga, who was a
mhm,
warrior and fought on behalf of her people, so that's another example. But I want to bring a perspective tonight where back in the 18th, 19th century, where women were just seen as homemakers. We were seen as
exactly.
housewives. And so we had no rights initially. Women had no rights at all. So we were not allowed to vote and that sort of thing because
Mhm.
we were seen lower in status than men.
Yes.
And so because
Mhm,
of that, the men, they had all the rights, and the system, it must be noted that the system designed that to happen. And so in that, they saw women being blocked from entering the public world, and this was done through customary and legal constraints, which did
mhm.
not allow women to be a part of certain aspects of society. And so basically, women were marginalized, and that
Yes.
gave rise to the feminist movement.
Mhm,
Some people
mhm,
become agitated when they hear about the feminist movement. But they had three
mhm,
waves of the feminist movement. We had the liberal, we had
Yes.
the radical and the black feminists.
Black
And
feminists.
because of those women fighting, and listen, we gotta fight. We always gonna. It's not something that is now. It's been happening way back, way
Yeah.
back, and women
Mm-hmm.
had to fight. And that is how they're right. That is how they got the constitution amended, and so they were given voting rights, and
Yes.
even to be for their oppression, and so to be a part of the patriarch, because
Mm-hmm.
back in the days, women, we were oppressed, we had no right, we couldn't do anything. And then I want to bring this aspect, we probably deliberate on it later on in our conversation, but the black feminists, all women back in the days suffered from classism and sexism, but the black women, they had to bring a different level to their struggle, which is racism.
Mm-hmm.
And if we go back into history, we would recognize that black women, racism was not just perpetrated by the white men, but both white men and women. So,
Mm-hmm.
this is a different struggle for the black woman. And so, even today in our society, we're seeing this sort of things happening. So, I want us to understand that what we're facing now, women fought before for these rights.
Yes.
And so we have
Yes.
to ensure that we continue the fight and not give up. We have to stand
Mm-hmm.
up for each other. We
Mm-hmm.
need to stand up together and stand up for our sister. Not when we see our sister falling, we laughing and we gone in a corner, and we suing, look what happened to Shay, instead of, like
Yes.
our sister said earlier, fixing her crown, helping to fix her crown. So I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
pause here, MP McDonald, my sister, and we'll continue the discussion because I know Annette has a lot more, I have more, and you have yours there. So I do
Yes.
hope my sister Jenny will be able to join us.
I know, and we have a young man who wants to join us too, Onyx Duncan. I'm hoping that he'd be able to join us at some point because he
Mm-hmm.
wants to be a part of this gaff too. But let me say to us, I like the idea where we started off from that biblical view, where women in the Bible were identified. We saw the issue there of the woman that was caught in adultery.
Mm-hmm.
Here it is. A woman was struggling. And when they saw her, and it says to us, as a matter of fact, just like Vanessa said, this is what has been happening to women throughout history, and it continues to
Yeah.
happen. We have in our society, if a man goes out there and he's having an affair with 2 or 3 or 4 women, you see him as a dude. But a woman, you see her as
A
as a
slut.
prostitute,
A
as a
slut.
whore, all these names we call her.
Yes.
And then we saw the issue, we saw that story in the Bible with the woman who was caught in adultery and everybody wanting to stone her. And she met Jesus there. And he
Mm-hmm.
said to them, those who are
Those
without
without
sin,
sin cast the
cast
first
the
stone.
first stone.
Yeah.
And when she saw him there and she ran and she knelt down before him, and
Mm-hmm.
then he said to her when he looked up, he couldn't see any of the accusers. And he asked her, where are thine accusers? And then he
Mm-hmm.
cautioned her and he said, go and sin no
No
more.
more. Mm-hmm.
We
Mm-hmm.
saw the issue of Esther. Vanessa started to speak about Esther. Esther, when her people were in trouble and they were saying, and she said to them, look, I am going to go into the king. I am going to go there and stand up while the king is having his conversation with all the other men there, the advisors and all, whoever they be. I am going to go into to them. And her people cautioned her because they were scared, because no woman should have been going in there. And she
Mm-hmm.
said, I will go. If I
Mm-hmm.
perish, I
Like
perish.
perish. Mm-hmm.
Very.
Mm-hmm.
And she went there and she stood up for her people. And so these are the challenges that women have faced throughout
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
history. We've
Yes.
seen our own women here, many of them struggling. Many who went before us, paving the way before us. And if we check what has happened in the Caribbean and further afield, we are seeing so many of our women, Eugenia Charles, Margaret Thatcher, so many. Rosa
Fire.
Parks, and all these women that we
Mm-hmm.
can name who
Mm-hmm.
have struggled to make themselves, well, not who they want to be, but to let people understand the kind of potentials they have when those potentials were being locked down, and they weren't allowed to express themselves. And we all know the full story. Women couldn't wear pants, trousers, or pants, whatever you want to call it. And we've moved, we've evolved. And so
Yes.
our stories now are going to be stories that women coming many, many years after us are going to read about us. And
Yeah.
so I want to caution all of our women who are viewing this live tonight that
Mm-hmm.
we allow history to record us positively so that we can make those kinds of impact on the lives of the younger women who will follow after us. And so, Vanessa, I'm going to start off with you first so that you can tell us some of the successes you have had, and the challenges that you went through in order to be able to succeed. And even if you are having challenges now, we would want to hear from them, some of
Mm-hmm.
them.
When you thank you very much. So when you talk about struggle and me having, I wish Mark was on tonight because he was just telling Annette and he was reminding us of when Miss Kisu was taken off of the stage, and so
Mm-hmm.
many things. I was backbenched and then I was left off of a list, but that never stopped me because I
Mm-hmm.
remember a few days ago, or like, yeah, about a week ago, a teacher called and she was finding out about President's College because her son is in grade 7 and will be going off to PC. And so we were talking about the GTU elections. And so she said, Miss Kisun, you got my vote anytime because you represented me. And she reminded me of what I did as MP. And let me tell you, I could not have remembered. And she said to me, when the government, the then government, which is the government now, the PPP government, for some reason, whenever they're doing certain things, they had to have these big crowds and so on. I don't know why is that so. But they were in Linden. I don't know if you guys can remember this one-stop shop issue, where they were giving out house
Mm-hmm.
lots. They call it
Lots.
one-stop shop, right?
Yeah.
And so she said she was pregnant as a teacher, and she went there. And when I got there, they had, if you see how the people were crowded outside. And one teacher said to me, I told them the teachers and nurses must go on one side. And so I got teachers and nurses on one side, and I went in and was able to get teachers and nurses to go, they were able to get looked after first, and they were able to get through because they had to go back to work and so on. This teacher said, I looked at the then Minister of Housing, now President, and I said to him, could you please get up and give this pregnant woman, a teacher, a seat? And she said he got up and he gave her that seat, and I went and I got her records for her to ensure that because she was pregnant, her son is going to
Mm-hmm.
PC in grade 7. And so when you hear these things, I remember security guards. It aches me, and it still aches me. It ached me then. And Miss For Annette, you will remember my sister in Parliament when I raised the issue of security guards, and
Security
those
guards.
security
Mm-hmm.
guards were able to
Mm-hmm.
get, because they were being literally, I want to call it like we say in the Bible, don't rob God. They were being robbed. They
Mm-hmm.
were being
Mm-hmm.
disrespected. In some cases, no uniforms. They were not getting their time and a half and
Allowance
and,
and
and holidays and all these things, but they
mm-hmm.
were able because of the representation that I made in Parliament. And that
Yes.
time, I think it was minister. That time was Rohi was minister, and so they were able to get those monies from way back retroactive. You know,
Mm-hmm.
legal aid in Linden. That I represented the Region 10, and we got legal aid back. Legal aid is up and running again. We have young people working there. So there's so much. There are other things that we did, and as a member of parliament, and even as a teacher, I took children and young people into my home and guided them, and they were able to go to school and college, UG, the CPC. So, Coretta, these are things sometimes we look at what we did. some movement and so on. But
Mhm.
these are some of the things too. We have to look at the lives that we touch as teachers, correct? You would know I spent so much at the canteen for children who came to school hungry or, didn't have a lunch. Sometimes you share your own lunch. These things women do because as women, we were born with that instinct. We were born with that love. You understand?
Mhm.
For people. And let me
Mhm.
say this before I allow my sister Annette Corretto and yourself. 2012. 2012, and I think sometimes the only person that I would hear mentioning this is Mr. Solomon. And I would always give him hats off. It was the women led by yours truly who started those that led up to that struggle. It was the women
Yeah.
in the streets. We were in the streets. Summer thought, do you remember that? We were
Mhm.
in the streets. We called Mr. Solomon out as we came and we went to persons who were supporting the PPP government and businessmen, and so we called them out. It was the women who started that struggle. But like every other thing, when we're talking history and we're talking achievements, we always have to believe that it I don't know what it is, but we go with the men first. It's always highlighting what the men did and which man did what and who, achieved what. And the women. And listen, behind every successful man, I love my sister coming here, is a strong, powerful, successful, hardworking, dedicated, committed. You understand? Woman. I give my
Yes.
sister the floor at this
Yes,
time.
yes, yes. Thank you very much, Miss Kisun, Sister Kisun. But even before I share my own experience or experiences, I want to remind our viewers and listeners, since the topic is basically surrounded, successful women in a man's world, we have to remember, pick it up from the early point that Vanessa raised with regards to, the constitutional reform, even for voting rights. Women had to fight for that. But mind you, even at our level here in the National Assembly, women had to advocate to ensure that we have one third of our women, one third of the National Assembly is made up of women. So if we did not fight, if we did not add our voices, that would have been a male dominated parliament of Guyana. But praise God that we women that went before us, they were able to advocate and agitate for us to have an equal say at the table of decision making. The experience that I also want to share. I had the opportunity of serving at the Ministry of Public Infrastructure when I went into government, because my secular work was basically the Ghana Post Office Corporation. That's where I had my experiences, but I had no challenge there when it with regards to a male dominated organization against a female, because for me the corporation is made up probably 80% are women in the corporation. But women, they just got their own struggles. This body backbiting you, pulling down this body and all kind of thing. 'Cause we can be our own enemies, we can be our own enemies. So at the Ministry of Public Infrastructure, it a technical ministry, a male dominated ministry, and I was more than pleased to see women, young women, becoming engineers, whether electrical, whether civil, whether environmentalists, mechanical. I had the opportunity of having those first-hand experiences to see women playing an equal role in these technical positions. Ladies, you wouldn't believe me. The first female captain to steer a ship, one Vanessa Merchant, at the Transport and Harbors Department in 2019. I think she's the first female captain to have a master's in maritime, right, to bring ships in. But prior to that, in 2017, if my memory serves me accurate, between 2016 and 2017, you had 4 women out of 13, 13 Marine cadets. There were 4 women for the first time, who was able to access training and got qualified in maritime captaincy to bring ships in whenever they enter Port Guyana. So for me, I believe that women have been playing an equal role just like men in our society. Lest we forget, even in the religious body, we see women, in the Anglican, for instance, we know previously it was a total male dominated. Women priests, you want to be female priests and all kinds. I remember growing up as a young child, you know, myself and siblings, we used to mimic, during the holidays, you would mimic, you dress up your younger brother as the priest, or I would dress up myself as the priest. You get the bread and you're playing, you have your wafer or the communion, you get a little sweet drink and you're using it as the wine. So you playing church at home. And I grew with something in my head. I said, you know what? When I get older, I would like to preach the word of God. I would like to become a priest. But as you got older, you realize that the Anglican body is basically a male dominated body. But times have changed, because now you see women, becoming lay priests. Just I think in 2020 December, we had a second female priest who was actually ordained. I think one Miss Roberts, and I think in 2016 you had the first female deaconess from Joanna there in region number 1. I think her name is Mistress Hunter. You understand me? Even in the Catholic churches, I think women now are playing an equal role. In the Pentecostal churches, you're seeing it, and I guess in the 7 days, correct, where you're a member, women are playing their role. So, you know, things have changed. Times have changed, and I think the men are now becoming um cognizant that, well, look, hey, no longer can we dominate this world, because just what we are capable of doing, the women too, they are capable of doing. Women now driving minibuses on our streets, and if you look at it, the stats will show you that women don't get involved in accidents
Too many.
driving minibuses. Women don't. I've never heard a woman who is operating as a bus operator involved in accident. Perhaps I can be corrected here. Pilots, no longer you see men as captain, Captain Fields, Captain Fields. Now you're seeing women. You go out at Ogle there, you're going to see women, getting involved in aeronautical engineering. So I'm saying all of this to say to you, colleagues, that times have evolved. No longer, no longer the world is being dominated by men, because women, as Vanessa said earlier, with the whole feminist movement, women were able to fight for other women so that we can have an equal share of what the world has to offer.
Well, ladies, I'm happy that you're able to bring to the fore um, experiences of other women. Annette, I heard Vanessa talking about her challenges. It seems as if you had some very smooth sailing, Annette. So you had
You know, to be
those
honest with
challenges.
well,
Um, Go ahead. Go ahead.
Right.
well to be honest with you, to be honest with you,
You had minor challenges.
I I think I
You
had
said,
some challenge. I
go ahead, Annette. Go ahead.
I had some challenges in the political realm. So I wouldn't go further than that. But just to say that for the time being. But outside of
But
that,
Annette,
I think. Hmm?
Go ahead, go ahead.
No,
Finish.
but outside of that, as I shared before, I hadn't, I hadn't, I worked in an organization that was heavily female dominated, heavily female dominated. So Yen had struggles with men in the organization. Any struggles had to do with your own equal, which is, women, you know. So that's what I would want to share for now.
Vanessa, you were about to say something.
You know, I said Annette wouldn't want to touch the political aspect of the struggle because I remember one time Annette asked me, Vanessa, you just ask some questions, you know, even to authority, she was
Yes.
amazed at sometimes the way that I would put forward. But the thing is, since growing up, I've got that passion, and because last night as we spoke, it was last night, right, about abuse and so on, correct? With against women and all that. I've not only witnessed, but I've had some experiences. So that passion that you see come out, and that's why I would tell people. That's why I'm always like a lioness towards my daughters and towards my children when it comes to certain things, even my students, and representing women and going out there, fighting on behalf of women. We gotta, and the thing about it is that for me, I think we need more of this because the time does not permit us. I think we need another show, Miss McDonald, where we can highlight the achievements and successes of people like
Successes.
Viola Burnham and
Bornum.
James Phillips Gay and Janet
Janet
Jagan. We
Jacob.
need to do this. We need to bring these things to fore because, with Miss Jagan and representing nurses as Minister of Health, that's how nurses were able to get certain benefits, and these are things, it's Viola Burnham with Avanti Ram and all the other programs, and she was the first to Guyanese to be on the delegation for the United Nations Congress of Women, and the first three United Nations conferences. These are things that we need to bring out and let our women folk and the younger women. You see, I don't think we go in too much in depth with history, especially when it comes to women. And so we need to ensure that we educate our women. We need
Yeah.
and one of the things that is missing, Miss McDonald, I was at a forum with the on International Women's Day at the headquarters there, MCW. And one of the things that was said there is that these women went seeking younger women, seeking them out and to train them. That's the other aspect. To train them and to
Mhm.
bring them up and so that when they get into the public there, they were able to represent. And that's something that is not being done now. And I would love to see that instead of sidelining our women and feel because they like to say our mouth hot, eh?
Huh.
We loud. We loud, eh? And
Mhm.
we Irish. But instead of that, we need to empower our women. And that's what I would love to see happening again. Let us go to Miss McDonald, Miss Carson, Miss Keeson. We must go there into the different regions and get these young women. We seek the potentials. And look, when you see them, you know them. Attend
Exactly.
functions, allow them to speak and have them involved in public speaking and all these things so that we can seek them out, we can train them, and when we sit in back, because I don't intend to be there all the time, when we
Mhm.
sit back,
Mhm.
we can watch them and smile, and we can feel proud of what we would have done and achieved and accomplished in society. I've seen young girls who turn teachers that say, Miss, you inspired me. And so I became a teacher. And so these things, make you want to. I met a teacher the other day when we were over at Region 3. And she said, Miss, I told my colleagues when if once I ever become a politician, I want to be one like you. And I smiled because these are things that, encourage, but we must be able to empower women and train them.
Mhm. Mhm.
Well,
Mhm.
as we speak, so many things are coming out as we speak, and rightfully so. We should be listing all the successes of our local women so that
Mhm.
our people can understand the kind of role that the women would have played in molding our society. As a matter of fact, if we reflect on maybe 10, 15 years, 20 years ago, we would recognize that the role of a woman was very pivotal in the society in the sense of making the children rounded children. You know,
Yes.
as we said earlier, women, the challenges that women have faced is not something that started yesterday or last week. These were centuries ago. And we, if we can go to the days of when we had mothers being mother and father, 17
Mm-hmm.
children,
Mm-hmm.
15 children, 14 children, 27 some years and some not years, and the fathers were away at work and they only return on weekends or month end or whenever they return, but the mothers were there. But it was not only the mothers, but we had the society
Yes.
playing a
Yes.
role in the upbringing of our children. And these are important factors. If we were to return to them and strengthen them, then we would have a better society today. But again, the successes of each one of us here, if we add them together, then we would be able to say to younger women coming after
Mm-hmm.
us, I passed through this, or these were my challenges.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to overcome these challenges by doing A, B, C. And so I want to say to you that you can overcome them too. I want to applaud the principal of GTI, Dr. Crandon, Dr. Renita Crandon. She has been there. And it's a pity that we could not have had her on this program, but like everything else, we're going to have many more programs like these where we can invite some of our really, really successful women to share their challenges in other areas, not in trade unionism and politics, but in other sectors, because we've got quite a lot of them. As a person, as Coretta McDonald, my walk has not been an easy one. Um, in the trade union movement, quote unquote, the trade union movement is a man's domain, is a man's plane, is a man's circle. And for you to be there and to be able to succeed and get to the top, you've got to be very strong.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to be one, very strong, determined, know exactly what you want to get out of where you are, and just pursue those goals that you have
Goals. Mm-hmm.
and stand up for what you believe in so that you can get there. I had the men surrounding me in the trade union movement. Not so much at the GTU, but at the level of the Guyana Trades Union Congress. And so now you come in to tell these men that you want to be president and you want to be at the helm to give orders to all of these men. It wasn't it's not an easy pill, let me put it that way, for men to swallow, because the thing is, society, they have not groomed, they've nurtured men
Mm-hmm.
to be very egoistic
Mm-hmm.
and to be very, I am the boss. We
Mm-hmm.
wear the pants, so we are in charge. And so it's not really the fault of our men folk when we see that they operate in a certain way, but it's the way society would have groomed and nurtured them.
Nurture them.
And this
Yes.
is what we as women have got to change with our nephews, our sons, our boys in our street, the boys in our church. We've got to get them to understand that women are just as important as men. We have to
Mm-hmm.
teach them to love, to respect,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
to honor, to cherish, and more so to understand that women are not made for you to trod on. Women are were made to be side by side with you. Because if we go
Mm-hmm.
back to the teachings of the Bible, and I'm sure the Bhagavad Gita and the Quran, they are all saying the same thing, that women are helpmeet, not your
Yes.
maid,
Right.
not your servant, not your knockabout girl, not the one who you could slap and kick and spit on, and then feel that after 2 minutes you can call them again to be your servants. Women were made to be with men side by side. And so again, my story getting to being president of the Guyana Trades Union Congress. Even while our men thought that yes, it's a good idea. They never tell you no. Yes, it's a good idea. It's a good idea. But deep inside, this thing ain't gonna work. This thing ain't gonna work. Yes, it's a good idea. We support you. And you notice women have been on the forefront of every single activity,
Yeah.
every single event that we have
Yes.
around. The protest, the women are in the forefront. They outnumber the males. In our workplaces, we see the same thing. In the schools, we see the same thing. In the churches, we see the same thing. And so this is saying to us that women are important.
Important. Mm-hmm.
And we have got to be able again to teach our women folk, to teach our girls. And like we said over and over, we are many, many times our own enemies. Because you know what? We as women, we join with the men and we decide, Vanessa, not she. Correct? No, not she. Annette, we got to vote, we voted for the man. And
Exactly.
so it is saying to us that our women folk, we need to do even more work in terms of empowering them, to let them
Exactly.
understand that this is a sister. And for the
Yes.
sister to be successful, we
You gotta
have to prop her
support.
up. We have to prop them up. We have to support them. We need to reach out to them to fill the empty spaces that you are seeing rather than criticizing them. And so I'm happy that we have some very, very special women amongst us who are there, and they've been there to lend a helping hand. I'm sure, Annette, you can talk about some of the women who led you through school in
Yeah.
the political realm. I'm sure, Vanessa, you can say the same thing. Even in the church, we can talk about and highlight women who have been there to push us and prop us up, while we have some of the men there saying, yes, yes, give them the go ahead, give them the go ahead. But we have to continue to be the foregoers, the agents of change, so that we can allow that kind of space, free space, for our women to excel. And we have got to be able as women to be consistent with what we do. We should be there to speak out without fear or favor when we see men abusing our women folk. You know,
Yes.
some of us, we conveniently talk about these issues. And
Yeah.
so, you know, these are some of the simple things that cause men to do some of the things that they're doing when we as women remain silent on these things. And you know, I get very agitated when I have to speak about this, because just the other day I saw Priya putting up a whole lot of foolishness, and I had to ask, where was Priya's shout out? Where was her voice? Where was her call? Where was her whistle when Jagdio, the VP now, was abusing the first lady? You know, she and all the others, they were silent on it. But now she wants to talk about abuse, and you must report it and report it. Where was her voice then? And so these are the issues that as women, regardless of who is
Where
meting
the
out that abuse to our women, we must call them
Call
out.
them out.
As women, we must be bold. We must be proud of who we are. And even if it means that we have to stand alone, we should stand alone for what is right. And so, in in this entire sphere that we're operating, we've got to understand our roles, and we've got to understand that one of our role is to empower and to support each other. Ladies, over to you.
Well, I think, Coretta, you have said a mouthful, and early up, though I never had, I must be truthful, type of person I am. I've never had those kind of exposure, like, organizations such as the trade unions, or even in these little, these other mini set of organizations. My thing was just post office into the and the political environment. So some of the challenges, whether minor, major, it occurred actually in the political environment, and I said I wouldn't want to go there, because I
And that's
believe
fine. That's
you don't want to hang your dirty linen in the public, which
Mhm.
would cause much more discomfort to me as an individual. But if we to take the conversation to the next level, since the focus is on successful women in a man's world, I forgot to mention that in sports, sports, cricket, for instance, was heavily dominated by male. Now you got West Indies female cricket players,
Mhm.
England, so women are playing cricket now.
Football.
Football, even in
Mhm.
women are involved in football, basketball, women are
Basketball.
involved in basketball.
Table
Our very own Alien Pompey, Miss Finance. These women have been excelling at the level of their discipline in sports.
Chantal
They
Bright, please
yeah,
don't
yeah,
forget her.
yeah,
Trying
yeah,
to ski have our people.
exactly. You look, for instance, in the joint forces, the Guyana police force, a heavily dominated male organization. You see women now wearing wearing high badges, such as weather assistant commissioner of police. Maxine Graham recently retired as assistant commissioner of police. I can't recall if she's the first female, to retire or to hold such an esteemed position. You got ranks such as officers, such as inspectors, and all manner of thing in the Ghana police force. The GDF too, you got female who are colonel, what I mean? These highly dominated organizations, women have been successful. And Coretta, as you rightfully put, if we as women in our respective organizations see that, well, look, for instance, Annette can do well in this position that she's contesting for, we as women must be able to help Annette. Don't just tell Annette, propping Annette up, and then behind your back you're dropping she hot like hot cake. You know what I mean? We,
And
as
you
I
throwing
said earlier,
punches, man.
we said no, I ain't throwing punches. But I'm saying this to say to you, as I said before, we can be our own own downfall. Women against women. I believe in my heart that there are genuine men out there that would want to see women raised to the level where the president, we had a female president, first female president, the
And we
late
can have
Janet
more.
Jagan.
And we're
And
gonna
I
have
know,
many
and
more.
I have more coming. You understand me? Because I think the men, whether before, no, I mean, Forbes Burnham did his thing, but the men, whether before or after, people are now saying, we're tired. The men have failed us, even at the level of the Ghana Teachers Union. Y'all got big elections now ongoing, and you're hearing that, well, look, we had men who would have failed us. So it's time for a woman, So things
Thank you,
happening.
Lemon. Thank you, Lemon.
It's time for a woman to take the place of the president at that organization, because people believe um, a woman can really make the difference. So I just want to say to you, my colleagues, I believe as a woman that we can be successful, but first of all, it got to be within us. We got to be determined. We must be determined. Yes, the first female black judge, the first female black judge, Miss Jackson Brown. Jackson Brown, just recently she was appointed. So we even had at the level of the judiciary here in Guyana I think the first female chancellor, if my memory serves me accurate, was retired
That's really
Justice
nice.
Desiree Bernard. You know, and from then we would have seen, though we have them in acting positions, we have seen women taking the helm. You look across the judiciary, I sure you got more women outnumbering the men. So I'm saying all of this to say to you that women, we can be successful if we're determined to. And once we're determined, we must got thick skin, Vanessa. And I know, Vanessa, you got thick skin. And correct, you got thick skin. And I know I got thick skin
But
too, right? So we must have thick skin to show these men that, hey, yes, though we are childbearers, we can do just what you're doing. If you can climb lantern post, we could climb lantern post. You wearing pants, I could wear pants too. You understand me? So I want to say that we can be successful once we give each of us the necessary support that we so require or desire.
And so, Annette, I want to say, lest our men believe that we're attacking them. We, all
could
of
I
us, have our roles to play, and so we must be respectful of each other's role. There are some times when we're going to have some crossovers, and even when we have those crossovers, we should respect the roles that each other play. Because the
Exactly.
thing is, we can't do without
yes,
each other.
No,
And
no.
so in our homes,
respect with
we
both sides.
understand
Exactly.
that the men are going to be doing A, B, C, or they can do, or they should do A, B, C, but we can help along. We can do too. And so men must understand that while you were thinking or you grew up understanding that it's a woman's job to be in the kitchen, you can serve in the kitchen because if we look around, we have many, many male chefs. And so
Yeah.
every single one of us have our roles to play, and so if we complement each other and walk side by side with each other, we'd have such a beautiful world to live in.
Exactly.
Vanessa.
Yeah, I was just about to say, Coretta, that respect goes on both sides because
Mm-hmm.
I know we're talking about women, but it goes on both sides. But I want to bring out a point coming up from Sister Annette here tonight. And I heard you, my sister. I heard you when you said your struggles and challenges within the political arena, and quote unquote, you don't want to wash your dirty linen in public. And I want to
Mm-hmm.
say this. I agree with you, but what I would like to see is that even within the organization, that there's a forum where women and their issues
Yeah.
and struggles can be addressed, because we will come
Mm-hmm.
here and we will say, oh, we don't want to wash our dirty linen in public, but yet still within the organization we're still suffering because there's no platform for us to be able to express ourselves the way that we know we should. And so instead of resolving matters, lots of times um, they are swept under the carpet. So
Yeah.
when and where will it be correct for us as women to speak out on the treatment that is
Mm-hmm.
meted out to us at whichever level? So if we're here and because we of course we want to protect the image and so on, but at what level will we be able to? So I'm just bringing this not to say that we have to come out here and bombard and lash, but what we have to do is to fix it
To
also
find
in
ways.
house,
Yeah.
fix it in
Indeed.
where we
I
have
agree.
discussions. When you talk about a family, we talk about having family councils where we can sit and long ago you couldn't speak to your parents. Shut up. You're seen as disrespectful. You're seen as
Mm-hmm.
and it started from there. Even as little girls must be seen and not heard. I
Hard.
still believe
Mm-hmm.
that, but I believe that there are times when we have to hear our little girls, because many times they come telling us of their atrocities and their pain, and we brush them off, and so they
Mm-hmm.
grow with this, and so they we allow them to grow, and they develop anger, and we produce in society young women who are hurt, bruised, damaged, and so when they get out there now, it's a different ball game for them. So we have to start empowering them. Let us talk to our girl children. You still have parents who don't want to talk to their daughters, whether it's teenage, young adolescents, young adults. You want to
Mm-hmm.
talk, don't want to talk to them concerning boyfriend and the man. You know, nowadays, long ago you hear about writing home now. A man just walking in the woman house. You know what I'm saying? There's no cordial conversation. You have to
Mm-hmm.
have conversations with them. This is what you need to look for in a man. And you know, and listen, if the girl father is not a good example, tell she's not a good example. Don't
Mm-hmm.
try to polish it up and she must look to bring a man and you know the man and treat you well as a woman, you know, or give you that respect. But we have to be able to talk to our young people, talk to them. And like I said, it goes both ways. Some of us may not have sons and daughters, we might have sons alone. And don't say, well, if you when me bull loose, what's the thing you said? You should
I look
what
to
you
me,
should
but you
say?
have to be careful.
You understand what I'm saying? No,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
in today's society, you gotta be afraid to lose your bull because they got
Yes.
bullers out there that bully your
Yeah.
bull. So we
Yeah.
have to know, you know, I mean, we started off success of women in a man's world, but this is what will help us. And we have to start within our classrooms. We have to start
Yes.
the
Mm-hmm.
empowerment within our classrooms and not wait until we get to university and then we learn something because all of us didn't do history. We only do it up to a certain level. And so, you know, we have to start it and we have to ensure and start it in our homes. We have to start in our homes. I know Mr. Solomon talked about the MANA program that they had through with the footballers, and it was a very successful program. And sometimes you would be surprised of what comes out of these sessions and some of the
Mm-hmm.
questions that young people have, both young men and young women, you know, and the successes of women. We need to start it in our homes. Tell our
Yeah.
children about
Mm-hmm.
successful Guyanese women. Bring it in the classrooms. Not every time we want to talk about a struggle or we want to talk about a success, we start off with a man. And Queen
Mm-hmm.
Nzinga was one of the who fought for her people and stood up for her people. And Esther did the same. And Esther found favor with the king. I'm a Esther. I will find favor in due time and season. But you
Yes.
know,
Yes.
I think
But
that we need and ladies, I believe, and both of you are members of parliament, and I want to challenge you here tonight. I'm going to throw out a challenge because you guys are in the official position. But take for instance, when this young the police officer who was caught and slapped, you know, we should have been out there um supporting that young. I say we. I know Miss McDonald and I. We one teacher we got on a case the other day. We were able to bring some closure to a certain aspect of that situation. You know, and this is what involvement does. When we get involved, when we advocate, and so we're able to represent and bring, some amount of comfort and justice for our women and so on. So I want to challenge you ladies, when these things happen, pick up the phone and call and let's say, Miss Keystone, we're out here, we're going out there. Come, let's go. We need to represent. And I challenge myself too tonight that, we will not just sit by and even when it happens, soon as it happens, we have a show like this where we get out and we talk out against it as women, and I believe we will get some results when we do that immediate action. So I want to say to you ladies, it was nice. I know Lemon probably hitting you up there, Coretta. I think Lemon is going to hit you up there on the timing, but we need more of this conversation, and I would really like also to bring the man's aspect, bring a man's aspect or view, your
Yes.
perspective to
Mm-hmm.
this topic and of discussion here tonight. I want to say to all my women, especially my VWM women, you ladies know I love you. We're going to get back into action. My young people and all the young women in the Linden Youth Corps, I love you guys. I love the support. To my colleagues here on the platform tonight, it was really a pleasure. Well, Miss McDonald, it's always a pleasure. We've been on the trail. We will continue to be on the trail. And as my motto goes, neither we don't lose. Either we win or we learn. And so, and even on this program, it's a learning process for all of us here. And as we continue to advocate for women's rights, and as we continue to push for a better Guyana where we will see a one people, one nation with one destiny, and continue to fight for women and women's empowerment. I want to salute you ladies for the work that you continue to do. And, let us continue to work together, because in unity there is strength. And so
Strength.
let us
Yeah.
work as a team. Miss McDonald, pick up the phone again. Call us on, have us on their programs. Let us have these discussions, because lemon is on our case tonight. So, over to you, Miss McDonald and Miss Ferguson. It was nice being with you guys. To the listening and viewing audience, we love you. I remind you again, fly your kites in open spaces. Enjoy the Easter. Those persons going home, I think it's tomorrow, from the Dexter Tap show and so on. Please have a designated driver. Do not drink and drive. I know our young people, they get excited, and we don't want to hear any accidents and bloodshed. And to all those women who would have families who lost their daughters or, nieces, cousins, aunts to domestic violence, we extend condolences to those families, and to our comrade Janet Obamola's family. We extend deepest condolences. I had the opportunity of meeting her during Congress. So let me not take up any more of Lemon's time, because I don't want Lemon to call me after the show. Thank you again, and let's all stay safe, and may Almighty God continue to richly bless us and guide our paths as women as we continue the struggle.
Well,
And we have just about 3 or so minutes to wrap up. So we'll take 2 minutes
yes.
of you, and then we'll wrap it up.
Well, I just want to join with my colleague here, Vanessa Kisun, um, to say to you, Coretta, thank you for having is a timely one, and indeed we should have these sort of conversation, because us discussing it here would give persons start thinking or tickling persons' brains, and they might be able to give us suggestions as to how we can advocate on their behalf, right? I also want to remind those persons that um, in your excitement, because I know many persons have been would have missed the Easter celebrations for the last 2 years. So, whatever plans you have for the remaining of the week and weekend, please be reminded that COVID is still extant. So, you have to ensure you continue to wear your mask, continue to sanitize, and continue to watch your distance, because we're getting reports that I think there's breakout there. COVID hasn't gone from us. Sadly, I also want to join with you, Coretta, and Vanessa, publicly in extending. It's hard for me. It's hard for me. My sympathies to Yonet. Yonet has not only been a comrade, Yonet was dear to me. This is a friend. This is a sister, and I'm still coming to grip with her loss. She has left 5 beautiful children, but we know that they will be taken care of. So may God continue to bless her, and may she have eternal peace. Rest, my sister. Rest, my comrade. Thank you very much, Coretta.
Well, we're just about close of program time, and I want to thank you, ladies, for being here. I too want to join to express our heartfelt condolences to the family of our comrade, Janet Obumola, and to those women who've lost their life. Three of them. Three of them have been murdered senselessly. We want to express our condolences to those families too, and to ask that God would be their comfort even now. I just want to say to our folks here tonight, yes, I know you are talking about, you're saying that we need to have a man's perspective. And yes, we're going to have that. But let me just close by saying this. It says, mirror, mirror on the wall, I'll always get up after I fall. And whether I run, walk, or have to crawl, I'll set my goals and achieve them all. And that's what we as women have got to do. Yes, there are going to be times when we're going to fall, but when you fall, don't stay there. Get up, run. Even if you have to crawl, achieve those goals that you would have set there. And we're going to close on this note by saying, be careful. There's a roundabout right there by the South Rumvelt area there by the Plaza Bridge. If our operator could show us that roundabout, and I am not sure what bird it is, but it's a replica of some bird. If you show us that, and let me advise I don't think so. That bird, when you pass there, be very have you might have some scares. So be very careful when you're passing around there, and take care of yourselves. As Guyanese, we love you. We are one people, one nation, one destiny. Not one Guyana, one people, one nation with one destiny. Ladies, let's continue to go forward, and let's continue to empower all the other queens that are with us, also our princes, and our kings. Let's continue to empower them. Good night, and do take care. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye-bye. Yeah.
Shame, 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 Skyra, shame, 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 Skyra, shame, 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 Skyra, oh.
One day, me been a bamboo dam, and me see Tyra lay down there, and me ask see Tyra what she do there. See Tyra ice up she penny could wine like a boxing board.
See Tyra moment there, oh see Tyra moment there, see Tyra moment there, oh see Tyra